Okay, class. First of all, I will continue with the lecture first. Okay, so for today, the topic, I think I already shared the PowerPoint. Okay, I can have download it from the GC. Okay, and hold on. Okay, so for today is on the introduction to Malaysian public sector. Okay, basically the lecture is on two parts. Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So because this lecture is on two parts, I'm not going to, I think, cover all. So I do understand the timing. So most likely we'll use like maximum, half an hour or 45 minutes. And then the rest we can have Q&A and other issues may arise, okay, for this course. Right. So I discussed this on, okay, introduction to Malaysian public sector. Okay, in this lecture, we'll cover on the structure of Malaysian government and relationships between federal and state governments. Okay, and we'll look at the financial management framework for Malaysian government. Okay, that's the first part. In the second part, we'll discuss on accountability in public sector. Okay, so for today, I think I just cover the first part on the introduction to Malaysian government. Okay, and on Wednesday, I will cover the on accountability. Okay, so if you look at this, the structure of the Malaysian government, okay, there are three branches of the government: legislative, executive, and judiciary. Okay, I think since I delivered this lecture, right, you can always ask questions by typing, your questions on the chat, right? I think that is easier. Or you can interject me anytime if you're not sure that, or you need clarification or questions. Okay, sorry. Okay, right. So legislative is basically the court system, court of law. And sorry, it's not a court of law. Sorry, it's legislative is basically the parliament. Okay, the parliament, they basically issues the law. Okay, and then executive is the administration. Okay, so if you look at the prime minister and the cabinet minister, and then we talk about ministries, government agencies, that's basically under executive. And another part of the government is judiciary. These are the court system. So these are basically three arms of the government. So if you look at the definition here, separation of powers. Okay, this is applicable at both federal level as well as the state level. Okay, that no government organ or arms shall completely dominate the entire systems. So there is check and balance. I think that's the idea, is to have a check and balance. Of course, the executive is the part of government, the administration, that basically they are executing the government plan. So basically use the budget. So when we talk about using the budget or using the government money, so that is the executive of the government. Okay, I think in other words, okay, the ministries, the government agencies, those are under executive. Definitely, there is a mechanism for oversight to make sure that they can deliver their responsibilities. Okay, so the needs of legislative as well as judiciary. Okay, however, absolute separation of power is difficult to hold as some of members of parliament. So parliament is basically the legislative, are the cabinet ministers. Okay, so somehow we have to recognize this. Okay, it can be enhanced. Okay, for the benefits of the how well that money and government public money will be used, but at the same time it can pose challenges as well. Okay. Right, these are a bit more clear on the structure. Okay, that's basically, you can see the head of state is Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Okay, for international students, we have, we can call him as king of the country. So he's the head of state together with the conference of rulers. And then you can see the arms of the government, parliament, legislative, executive, cabinet, and then judiciary. You can see also the other commissions, other committees and commissions under directly accountable to the king, including the Auditor General. Okay, the Auditor General work for their reports is very critical, important for the parliament to scrutinize the spending undertaken or the spending made by the cabinet ministers or the ministries or the executive functions of the government. Right, and generally if you look at commissions, they are also established by Yang di-Pertuan Agong, by the king. So at this point, take some time to understand this structure, okay, because it have a huge implication on how you understand how the government works in terms of accountability and performance, okay, of the government. Okay, there is a check and balance. So in what way that this is effective and it can deliver what it should be. Okay, legislative power to make law, and it is in the hands of the parliament. Of course, parliament is not only issuing law, but they can scrutinize, they can question the executive. Okay, and the executive must respond at the parliament. So if you, I think you can observe this through the parliamentary session. Okay, when there is a parliamentary session, you can see questioning from the member of parliaments, and basically the ministers or the representative of the ministers holding the executive in the executive function, they must answer. Right, there are two houses in the parliament, House of Representatives. So this is basically the members of parliament, as we understood. They are elected, okay, and the other is House of Senate, basically by senators. So all these have its function, I think. But of course, the main that we are always looked at is House of Representatives, or in Malay we call it Dewan Rakyat. Okay, these are elected members of parliament. For the senators, mostly they are they are appointed. Okay, they are not elected through election, but because of their skills and their competencies, okay, they've been and of course at the same time there is a political affiliation that they can provide services to the government and to Malaysia as a whole. So they have been appointed, okay, as a member of House of Senate or Dewan Negara in Malay, and mostly they are not elected. Okay, they are appointed. So I use the term elected and appointed. So try to get used to it as well, because elected means they are being selected by public, okay, through election. Okay, so it's very significant because they are selected by people because of the majority in winning the election. So they are elected. So this can be discussed and can be an issue in the sense of accountability. Okay, so executive power, so you can see the cabinet ministers and its ministries as well as agencies. So under executive power, okay, they are basically the budget, the government money being allocated to them for them to use, okay, for the entire year. With series of programs for development, for economic sector, for security, for social sector. There's so many. Okay, of course, I mean you understand this generally when we talk about ministries. Okay, what program they have. Okay, nowadays in the COVID time, so ministries of health, Ministry of Defense, okay, the police, and as well as the education. These are services that have been always in the media. Right, and judiciary, of course, the court of law. So if there is any disputes, then it can be done through judiciary. Now we move to administrative structure of Malaysian government. Right, so as mentioned earlier, that Malaysian government, they adopt three-tier governments, where you have federal, state, and local government. Okay, so each level of government, there are agencies. Okay, in the case of federal government, there are ministries, and under ministry there are departments, statutory bodies, and some of them is also they have companies. Okay, accountable to directly, accountable to the ministers and then to the parliament. In the case of states, there are departments under state assembly and statutory agencies. Okay, in the state also they have companies. Okay, either under agencies. Okay, it can also be directly under the state assembly. Of course, through the agency, yeah, in charge of it. Right, and third tier is local government. Okay, local government. There are three types of local government. We have city councils or city hall. There are certain city that is a local government, but they have city position, city status. There are municipal councils. Okay, and like I think the state of Selayang, these are municipal councils, and then there are district councils. Okay. Scattered throughout the country. So generally, local government is under the state, and then together all the states form the federal government. Just a quick highlights in terms of the members of the council, the members of the state assembly, and the members of parliament. So if you look at federal and states, the parliament as well as the state assembly, their members are elected. Okay, they are elected through election. Whereas the members of local council, they are appointed, okay, through their political affiliations as well as the needs of the city. Okay, they can choose some experts or some representative for in the member. Okay, any question?
Still, there's someone requesting to enter.
Oh, okay, hold on. Then I need to stop sharing. Should be automatic. Okay. Oh, all right. So I have to be on the screen, then you can enter. Okay, we wait 1 or 2 minutes. This class should be how many students? 43 students, isn't it? 41. Okay, never mind. If there is request, just let me know. Okay, I will continue. You follow the class? Everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
No
sir.
problem, just let me know. Okay, of course, we have to recognize the limitation of presenting through online. Okay. Right, now we move on to look at the relationships between federal and state governments. Okay, of course, it is discussed at the introductory part. Right, I think in terms of the level of government is there. Now we focus on the I think scope of between the federal government as well as the state government. And then we can also look at the financial relationships, okay, as provided by the Constitution. Right, so this is important. So we look at this is 9th schedule under Federal Constitution. Okay, under Federal Constitution. So if you look at this list, federal, state, and concurrent list. Okay, very interesting because this is how the what do you call it? So the jurisdiction between the federal government and the state government. Of course, our discussion mainly, for federal government accounting, but it's good to know because if you look at the functions of the ministries, right? Sometimes it's affected by by the limitations because by the areas of jurisdictions. So let us quickly look at this. For federal list, external affairs, so international affairs by the federal government. Okay, if you look at diplomatic relationships with other governments, and also, but mostly I think for economic activities, it can be done through federal government as well as state government. But diplomatic relationships only done by the federal government, undertaken by federal government. Defense, okay, so you can see defense common under federal. So you don't see any state that have their own army, okay, except there is for the royal, it's not an army, but it's more like security, right? But generally, for the defense, it's under federal. Of course, every regiment, okay, every troops and part of the army is directly under the Sultan, under the Sultan of each states they have their own troops. Okay, but it is under federal. Internal security, administration of justice, finance, okay, government finance is basically under federal government, okay, to take loans, okay, to raise funds, to collect. Generally, mostly for the taxations is under federal government. Because there are some tax collected at the state as well as at the local government, but not as significant as what are collected at the federal government. Okay, trade and commerce, shipping, communication, transport, education, healthcare. So if you look at the bottom three, okay, I think all are very significant. All are very significant in terms of the role of government. Okay, because Malaysia generally, I think nowadays also you can look at across the globe. Okay, government is important. Okay, government service is important. Okay, either it's developed countries or in developing countries. Okay, of course, there are also attempts saying that, okay, the government may not be as important, particularly in the commercial activities. But then what's happening, okay, that theory is not easy to be supported. Mostly you can see the role of government always important in any country. Right, that's for federal, and then we have state list. So these are jurisdiction by the state. Okay, state administration, forestry and agriculture. You can see that forest, so it's basically full jurisdiction of the state. Okay, so it means that if there is federal development or federal government plan for development under the state land, then definitely they need state cooperation or approval. Turtle and fishing, river, definitely. Okay, land matters, okay, very significant. Okay, as forestry and agriculture is in the hand of state, land as well. Okay, state holidays, Islamic affairs and revenue. Okay, it's very interesting. Islamic affairs and revenue actually is not even under state. It's basically under Sultan. Okay, under Sultan of each state or under the head of the state. Okay, of each state. So even not under. It depends. I think there are differences between. Slight differences between states. Okay, and so you can see, yeah, that's why if you look at development, because a lot of development planned by the federal government, sometimes there is use of land, the need to use the development on the, related to land matters. Then the cooperation of the state government is very important. Otherwise, the project cannot be continued. Okay, concurrently, scholarships, social welfare, protection of wild animals, town and country planning. Okay, they can work together. Right. That's for the jurisdictions between states and federal government. Any question?
Sir?
Yes?
There's one person is asking permission to enter the Google Meet.
Okay, let me try again. Okay. Right. Is that all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let me continue. Okay, financial relationships, revenues. Okay, there are revenues accrued by the federal government and also specifically by the state. But I think, as I mentioned, mostly is collected by the federal government. Expenditures and commitments, both federal and state governments are required to cover their expenditures. Okay, but there are funding from the federal government as well. Right, for borrowing, state may borrow from the federal government to address their budget deficits. Okay, so you can see that very close financial relationships between state and federal government. And yeah, you can say that there are some state governments, have better off than other states. Okay, in terms of their ability to, to collect funds. Right, revenues. All revenues and money raised or received by the federation shall be paid into federal consolidated fund. And the same applies to the state consolidated fund, but excluding zakat, fitrah, baitul mal, or similar Islamic religious revenues. Okay, because this under state and under Majlis Agama, Islamic religious councils. Okay, so if you can see this, but we'll discuss this further. Federal consolidated fund and state consolidated fund. Okay, where they keep record of their money. Okay, or their accounting for the revenues. Of course, with revenue, you can expect expenditures, correct? When you can only spend if they have the money. So all this, in terms of accounting, is kept under a consolidated fund. But of course, we'll discuss this further under financial reporting, financial accounting and reporting. Right, and Article 109, these are all under Constitution. State government is entitled to receive financial assistance from federal government in the form of grants. Okay, there are a series of grants that are available to be received by the state government from the federal government. Okay, I think this one, as mentioned earlier, okay, generally the expenditures they have to cover. But there are some instances where state government are unable to cover the expenditures. Okay, for instance, for development projects, the federal government will finance some of these expenditures on a reimbursable basis. Okay, sounds like they have to spend first. The state government have to spend, and then the federal government can support. Okay, Article 98, all the expenditures, both at the federal or the state, shall be charged to the consolidated fund, and it is approved by both Parliament as well as the State Assembly. Okay, in the case of borrowings, the federal shall not borrow except authorized by the federal law. The provision is also applicable to the state government, except if the borrowing are from approved financial institutions in less than 5 years. Okay, so why government borrow? Look at the purpose of government borrowing, to cover budget deficits, and definitely if the revenue collected are not enough from taxations and other source to cover the expenditures. So you look at the bottom there are two types, development and operating expenditures. Okay, but we'll look at this more, okay, how these are in practice, okay, in terms of development and operating expenditures. All right, so we go look at quickly the source of borrowings. You can see that, okay, through government bills, right, treasury bills. It can be Islamic as well, right, and there are, I think, series of various sources. Of course, the Malaysian government securities, treasury bills, these are the main, as well as bond issues, sukuk, and some also they receive financing from like development banks, but mostly I think is from the treasury, the Malaysian government securities, as managed by the Bank Negara or the central bank. Okay, that's for borrowings. Grants, okay, I think as mentioned here, financial assistance from the federal government, and it's not repayable by state government. Okay, so definitely grant is different from borrowing. Okay, borrowing, you have the state government have to repay. Of course, borrowing, yeah, by the federal government to the state government. Sometimes borrowing also, okay, can be given to agencies, certain projects, particularly to government-linked companies and others. Rationale for the grant: state have insufficient revenue to finance the expenditures. Is that also one of the reasons to cover their budget deficit? Redistribution of wealth, okay, as provided by the Constitution. Okay, definitely, I think because of state, definitely as a member of Malaysian government, isn't it? As a whole, as a member of Malaysia. So there is a provision in the Constitution that provide them with the financial grants. Okay, and right. Okay, one example here is a revenue growth grant. Okay, so the basis is basically there is growth of revenue by in the federation. Federation here means referring to federal government. Okay, the allocation not exceeding 250 million per year. The basis for the distribution is based on the size of population as well as the GDP of the state. Okay, the users, so you can see this grant, so there is a specific use. Okay, water supply, public housing, industrial estate development, as well as other development projects approved by the National Finance Council. So at the federal government, there is a National Finance Council headed by the Prime Minister. Okay, so you can, if you look at here, is a revenue growth grant. Okay, so you can check in the internet, right? So if you want to have a copy, so these are examples you can download, okay, from the internet. Revenue Growth Grant Act. So all the details is there. You can provide even the basis of allocation. Right, and okay, next. Okay, so you can. There are other grants as well between federal government and state government. Okay, National Finance Council. Okay, if you look at this, there are three types of grant: capitation grant, state road grant, state reserve fund. These are provided, the provision is through a constitution. There are also other grants through acts of parliament and grants through National Finance Council. So you can see that, of course, through constitution as well as act of parliament is like, you know, is need to be given. when all the requirements are met by the state, they should be given. But in the case of capitation grant, these are basically based on annual based on the size of population. State road grant, okay, it's interesting. So if you look at that, it's basically for the road network that should be supported to be maintained. So for the maintenance of the road, the state road, so the budget or the allocation in the form of grant is given by the federal government. Of course, not much. If you look at the quantums, okay, so that's why I think for the state, for the road, there are 3 types of roads. One is federal road, the other is state road, and also local government also managing some of the roads. So it is interesting if you go and drive or take your motorbikes, whatever, you can start asking. So when you move, is it a federal government road? Is it a state government road? Or it is by the local government? Okay, because you must remember, each that level of government, they are also responsible to maintain the condition of the roads or the highway. Right. So the revenue growth is under Act of Parliament. As I showed to you. Okay, it's not in the Constitution. So under the Act of Government. So Revenue Growth Grants Act 1977, but amended in 2007. So you can see multiple sources. Of course, it's good to know this, the relationship between the federal and the state. Okay. Right, now we move on to Malaysian Public Sector Financial Management Framework. Okay, Government Accounting Machinery. I think before I move, is there any questions on the Malaysian government? Let me have a look at your... Any questions? All right, permission, okay. That's why I think timing is important. So, is it local government in Malay refer to ADUN? Or ADUN is state government. Ahli Dewan Undangan Negeri. Okay, so state assembly. So ADUN is state government. Local government is a local kerajaan tempatan. Okay, so council member, they call it council member, kerajaan tempatan. Okay, councillor sometimes. Some local people they call they are councillors. Very important people. They are the one who basically decide what's happening in the local government. So if you look at the setup, the licensing of businesses, the setup of the local city development, these are the people. Okay, very important. Not state government. Of course, they need approval from the state government. Okay, no other questions? Right, let me continue. Okay, Malaysian, right, government accounting machinery. Okay, there are agencies, personnel, and system and procedures. So look at agencies, the treasury. Okay, now we are mainly discuss on the federal government. Okay, so the agencies, the treasury, and there are other agencies, but on okay, government accounting machinery. Okay, so the accountant general department, okay, is in charge of preparing or maintaining the government accounts. Personnel, controlling officers, and accounting officers. So I want you to have a close look on the personnel, particularly the first person, controlling officers. So generally for students in PSA, I will ask them to remember this person. So if you study PSA in Malaysia, so controlling officers, or maybe in Commonwealth countries, because I know generally we follow British term. If you are coming from Commonwealth countries, most likely you will use the same term. So controlling officers will be your close friend for the subject. Okay, so you will learn this for budgeting as well as for financial reporting. controlling officers. So then you look at the government structure in the parliament, in the ministries, in the local government, in the judiciary. So where are the controlling officers? Who are these guys, right? So what are they doing? Why they are becoming so important in terms of government funding as well as accountability? Okay, system and procedures. Okay, what are the source of mandates? I think very important in the case of Malaysian government. If you look at the company, generally their source of mandate is through Companies Act. Then if it is listed, okay, Bursa Malaysia, okay, and also Securities Commissions, law. Huh? But in the case of government bodies, they have more laws that is governing them. Okay, under constitutions, Financial Procedures Act, Audit Act, Treasury Instructions, okay? And sometimes every government agency, they are basically enforcing certain acts of the government, certain acts, certain parliamentary acts. So they have the enforcing or implementing the acts, okay? Like in the case of MIA, Malaysian Institute of Accountants. So basically they are managing and enforcing the Accountants Act, okay? And these are basically issued by the parliament. Right, the treasury, you can see this, I take this from the treasury websites, okay? The treasury is, basically at the Ministry of Finance to formulate and implement fiscal and monetary policies. Okay, of course, monetary policies are generally under central bank, okay? Because central bank is part of treasury. To formulate financial management and accounting process, procedures and standards for the government. To manage the acquisition and disbursement of federal government loans, okay? To monitor that Minister of Finance incorporated companies. To monitor, okay, there are entity, they call it Ministry of Finance, Ministry of MOF Incorporated, MOF Incorporated. So under MOF Incorporated, there are companies basically under as Malaysian government as the shareholders. So Ministry of Finance Incorporated is basically, or MOF Incorporated is the entity as a holding company. To monitor the financial management of ministries, government department, and statutory bodies. Okay, I think these are the functions that closely related to these subjects. The financial management of ministries, government departments, and statutory bodies, and its related agencies. To manage government procurements, okay, there's a topic that we're going to discuss that. And housing loans for public sector employees. Okay, I think as a government servant, okay, generally they have government housing loans. So currently, I think around 500,000. So if you want to get housing loans with a very low charge, then becoming public servants is one option. Right, and second is Accountant General Department, AG. Okay, is also an agency under Ministry of Finance or under the Treasury. Okay, the mission, improve the public sector accountability, the functions to prepare the accounts, okay, quality public accounts. I think just take this word towards from the AG website. And not only the accounts they prepare, they also managing the human resource or the human capital of accountants basically, They're managing the accounting personnel for the government as a whole, not only in AG. Okay, for the government as a whole, okay, in the federal government as well as state government. That's why you can see some of the state accountant, they are basically from AG, Accountant General. So they are recruited, trained, and by AG. And definitely the last point, to regulate and enforce accounting and related matters under relevant regulations. So when we talk about public sector accounting, okay, MPSAS basically managed by AG. Even if you want to be public auditors, okay, public auditors, definitely you need to become if you want to sign the accounts as an auditor, Of course, AG will be the secretariat. Okay, controlling officers. So who are these guys? Okay, under the Financial Procedures Act, Section 15A, Minister of Finance or the Chief Minister may appoint, Chief Minister referring to the states, may appoint a controlling officer in respect of each purpose of expenditures. Controlling officer is the chief accounting officer for each purpose of expenditure of an organization. Right? So they are responsible and they are also accountable. Duties to control the authorized estimates, the budgets for particular purpose. Okay, to control and manage all public money, and to secure proper exercise of all performance of its duties. Of course, these are very technical in terms of its terms, okay, legal, very skewed towards legal terms. But if you convert this to management terms, it's basically the controlling officers, they are accountable to manage the public monies, the budget allocated to them, okay, in the most efficient and effective and economic way. Okay, so that basically the framework that we can use to understand how he must exercise his his judgment to execute his responsibilities. Okay, so your friend in the PSA, controlling officers. Okay, accounting officers can read the details. They are basically working for the controlling officers in the definitely in the ministries as well as government agencies. So this is a term used, okay, when they handle public money. Codes of conduct as an accountant in public service, trustworthy in handling public funds, demonstrate probity in handling assets and resources entrusted to them, care in safeguarding property, assets, and confidential information, proper observance of the organizational rules and procedures to avoid waste and extravagance, personal honesty in claiming expenses and ensuring the official assets and resources are not waste. So this is under IFAC. Okay, so it's pretty much, if you look at handling public funds, so the accountants in the public sector. Okay, I think before I move to accountability in public sector, I think I will discuss this in next class. Right, pretty much I think that's what I want to cover for this session. Okay, right, any questions? Oh, very quiet. Are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. Okay, have a quick look for the material I just presented. Okay, and okay, if no question or maybe you're still thinking, right? Okay, hopefully at this point, you already have your group member, isn't it? Already have your.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Nurul Taman, you already have group?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I got it.
Okay, so I think group Brother Shadwan. Yeah, okay, thanks for that.
Actually, I don't have, sir.
Okay, Brother Ali, you still don't have, right, hold on. Okay, okay, for those groups, if you have 3 members in a group, I think I can still see, you know, there are groups that with 3 members. Ali as your group member. Okay. can PM me or you can put in the WhatsApp group. Okay, there are, I think, 3 members. The group, I think, 2 more groups. I'm sorry. I think 1 more group. Okay, Brother Ali, okay, there's 1 group with 3 members. Sister Morfikah Morni, are you there? I think 1 group left, huh? Nur Shazwani Sazaki, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you take Brother Ali as member of your group?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So, Brother Ali will be become your member, huh? Okay. Right. In terms of topic, I think we can finalize. I think not a problem. Mostly, I think if you look at I think the most popular assignments topic on housing and budgeting. I think quite diverse. Everybody, every group choose different topics. For COVID-19 also, but as I mentioned, for your class, the maximum is 2 to 3 for a topic. All taken. Okay. But in case, I think, in case if you face any issues or problems with your topics, okay, I give 1 more time to change. Okay, but don't waste too much time. I think learn something, but if you want to change, you need to change quickly. Yeah, because time is limited. It's only 6 weeks to complete the first assignment. Okay. Is there any other person without groups? No.
Sir, regarding the assignment, may I ask some questions?
Yes, please.
I think the assignment assigned us to discuss the problem about the topic chosen.
Okay.
May I know your expectation on the flow of discussion of the problem?
Okay. You are from which group? Nurul Maisara.
I'm with
Nurul Maisara Muhammad Fuad.
Muhammad Shafi.
Muhammad Shafi. What is your topic?
The first assignment, my group topics is public transport.
Okay. All right. Public transport. All right. City Maisara. Nurul Maisara. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. Let me have. Okay. So your topic is public transportation. Okay, as an example, of course, what I explained can become example for other groups, right? So what you will do, you read through issues pertaining public transportation in Malaysia, okay, or in the country that you choose, and there are definitely issues and challenges, right? And so explain to them, because definitely there are needs of for public transportation. It can be, but public transportation, it can be both. One is at the local level, the other is interstate. Okay. So yeah, so have a quick look, but you can focus only at the local level by local government, because of basically public transportation in the city, or in the mainly in the city. But you can also look at interstate, right? Because public transportation is for public use, isn't it? So you define what is the scope of your discussion, okay? But I just give an example, but maybe during the course of your reading, you find an interesting issue with regards to public transportation, okay? In general, nowadays people, when you talk about basically roads, the use of roads in general, maybe, okay, maybe when you read, there are interesting issues on the we can start with the public transportation. At the end, when you look at so many issues, because nowadays people use their own vehicles, so you can definitely, within that discussion, you may also consider other factors like the quality of public transportation, okay? And the mode of public transportation is so many. You can use, there are buses, there are, what do you call it? Nowadays, e-hailing is also one of them. So what issues together with e-hailing? So you can discuss further. But sometimes it's too broad, okay? You become a good group, you can be very confused. So which direction you want to choose? But what is most important you want to discuss? So you may choose. For instance, in the case of public transport, you can have buses, you can have, what do you call it? LRT and all that in the city. But e-hailing can be an issue as well. So e-hailing can be a topic by itself because of what are the relevant factors in terms of quality of services, in terms of cost, so you can discuss. Now, I don't want to dictate at this point, so what direction. You read yourself, and then as a group, you choose. One, you choose specific, of course, at the beginning, you can just discuss overall. Some group, they prefer to even mention history of what is it, but don't overemphasize on that. But as a background, it's okay. But then, but the issue is, what is the main problem, public service problem, with regards to public transportation? Okay, and so with that, you have enough discussion. As I said, you can also look at literature, professional, I mean, all kind of sources. You don't limit yourself. And even you can look at other countries, how they address the problems. So once you have enough material, enough discussion, then you can discuss, so what is the best way to address this issue, these problems? And then you prepare your you evaluate what has been done by the government, okay, by the government agencies, government as a whole, and government agencies. Okay, so government here means comprehensive. So don't just look at one small agency, because sometimes one problem is addressed by multiple agencies. So, but in any case, you recognize that how this has been handled by the government. But in terms of your solutions, you can be narrow as well. Okay, you can discuss at government level, you can discuss at agency level. Okay, it's possible, as long as it shows you demonstrate, a good understanding, as well as you really, try to solve the problems in a best way possible that you can think of. Okay, so that will be the line of discussion that I'm looking at. Are you with me? Of course, the ability
Okay.
is doing is important, because you may definitely, I'm not saying that we should criticize the government. I'm not saying that, but it's more on continuous improvement. It's always ways to improve. Are you with me? So you don't want, like, when the government doing something, they just repeat whatever they've been done before, and then they continue, because some services may not be relevant anymore. Okay, so what are the changes need to be taken? And also, if you look at government, they cannot change only for 1 year. They must have 5 years plan, 10 years plan, 20 years plan. So that's why sometimes they have a long-term framework, long-term planning. So get yourself familiar with all this. So in the case of public transport, you definitely planning for public transport. Sometimes they have master plan for the public transportation. So read them. Okay, read them and how it has been done. So you may definitely, there are always ways to improve, okay, or to disagree also. It's nothing wrong to say to disagree, okay, because in that way, then the idea is so that you can propose a viable alternative. Okay, so why it is important in public for this PSA, definitely is very important for budgeting and also for planning and good use of government fund. Okay, so then you understand the process. Okay, that's the idea. And before you move to the accountability and the financial reporting and all that. So you must start from good planning and good execution. Okay, so with these two, definitely, okay, we'll start with a good foundation before all these activities being reported and being audited. Okay, so that's the idea. Are you with me? Am I answering your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, okay, as much as you can.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
as much as you can. Okay, whatever I just said, try to understand them. Okay, it may sound simple, it may also sound difficult for some of you, but I think you discuss each other. If you're not sure, you can always seek for clarification. Any other question? But I think the idea is, I think in government activities, okay, one of the ideas is, okay, because the demand of the people changing, okay, and also Malaysia and any government, they are part of a global community. They cannot live in isolation because, in a way, because people are very dynamic. Okay, they're not addressed well. See, nowadays, you look at what happened in the US. Okay, the government, the press, I know what happened. They try to ignore certain issues. It can, at the end, it can lead to instability. Even in Malaysia, recent time, just 1 or 2 weeks, okay, when there is a political risk or political instability, okay, of course related to leaderships, then it can lead to have some effect on the economic activities. So you can see how important it is, okay, good governance in the government as well as the government system, okay, make sure that everybody, the welfare of the people be taken care of. And definitely there is the governance system, the accounting systems have its roles to play, okay, to make sure that things are in order. One of them, okay, the underlying of the systems. Right, any other questions? Enough for now? All right, I think I think for the discussion, I will end this discussion. It's almost 1 hour. Right, so I will continue for the remaining lecture, will continue on Wednesday. So if you have any questions, you can ask me after this, after I basically close the class, and you can WhatsApp me, either by the WhatsApp group or personally. Okay, so I think with that, I end Taufiq wal Hidayah. I end this session with Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
If you have any questions, I will wait for another 5 minutes. The rest, you can